Good evening and welcome back to Digby, Nova Scotia. Scott Squires with you on Bell Line TV1. The final draw on day 3, 12th draw overall, and I guess some of the teams may have dinner reservations. They got going just a little bit early, but that's fine. Only a couple of rocks thrown here in this first end. Two teams representing opposite coasts of our great land here in Canada. Team British Columbia, skipped by Diane Foster, and Team Nova Scotia, skipped by someone that's no stranger to even the casual curling fan, Colleen Jones. And Colleen Jones and her Nova Scotia foursome looking pretty good to move on to the playoffs, but a very big game for Diane Foster and her BC squad if they want to make a move and stay in the top 4 in their pool for a playoff position. So we are just underway here in this first end. And British Columbia, as you can see, throwing the yellow rocks. Nova Scotia will be throwing the red. So we'll just wait for this shot to finish, and then I'll bring you up to date on the most recent standings in the women's pool on this side of the draw. So that one just over the hog line, and will come to rest about midway and be a bit of a center guard. So in the Pool B on the women's side, Newfoundland and Labrador 4-1 coming into play earlier. Nova Scotia at 4-1, Ontario at 4-1, and then you've got that battle for 4th place. You've got British Columbia and Manitoba both at 2-3, and British Columbia defeated Manitoba earlier, so head-to-head, British Columbia would hold the tiebreaker, but right now, British Columbia not thinking about that. They're thinking about controlling their own destiny and winning against Nova Scotia here and kind of punching their own ticket into the top 4 rather than maybe have to rely on the results from other draws. Great to have you on board here, live on Bell Line TV1. And our feature game on Sheet D, Michelle Lang, Randy Furby bringing you the action there. And that's men's action between Alberta and Manitoba. So some Western rivals, prairie rivals, going head-to-head on our feature game on Sheet D. And, of course, as mentioned, here on Sheet B, a matchup of the west and east coasts of Canada. Colleen Jones, well, I could start listing off her accolades and achievements in curling, but we would probably be off the air and the game would be over by the time I got through them. Needless to say, she has been an icon not only in Nova Scotia but in Canadian curling since 1982. So we'll see now in this first end. We've seen a mixed bag of results in the first end in terms of whether or not teams want to feel each other out, get a feel for the ice, get a feel for the weight, and blank an end, or sometimes you'll see the complete opposite where teams just kind of go right after it. So we do have a guard in play, but not a lot happening in the rings. As we see this Nova Scotia stone come back, and it'll just nudge that BC rock out of the back of the house. It's a lot of curling here over a couple of days, and of course Bell Line TV1 will be with you right through Saturday up to and including the championship finals on Saturday afternoon on Sheet B and Sheet D, 3 o'clock local time, 3 o'clock Atlantic time here in Digby, the scheduled start time for those games. Of course, a little later on, we'll tell you more information about the very cool event taking place Saturday afternoon as a lead-up to those gold medal games. It's the Everest Furby National Pro-Am. Some information about that coming up a little later on, and we'll have a gentleman join us on headset that might be able to give a bit of inside information about that event and how it all came to be. So stay tuned for that. We're going to hopefully get to that around the 4th end. So we'll have a chat in the 4th end and maybe even talk into the 4th end break if my guest doesn't get tired of me and want to leave quickly, running and screaming. So this Nova Scotia team, Colleen Jones, her vice Kim Kelly, second Mary Sue Radford, and throwing lead stones Nancy Delahunt. These ladies know each other very well and are quite familiar with one another. I'm sure they almost don't have to speak. They almost know what they're thinking at any given time. So Nova Scotia now making a bit of a play here. They've got a couple of red stones in the house, as you see. Just that one guard sitting out on the center line about mid-range. belonging to British Columbia. Not sure if that's going to come into play or not. On the BC side, a fairly new team. Diane Foster, the skip. Leanne Ursel, the vice. Cindy Curtin, the second. And Sherry Heath, playing in her first ever nationals, throwing lead rock for British Columbia. You see the sweepers on it right away. Sweeping it for line. Trying to keep it clean. They're going to get by that guard in the front. No, they're going to rub on that guard and split those two BC stones off to either side. So that's going to open up the middle. And you see it on that look right there. Middle part of the ice now completely opened up for Colleen Jones. And I have a little anecdote involving Colleen. I actually chatted to her about it the other day, but back in 1982, when she first burst onto the scene in curling in Nova Scotia and Canada, they held a parade for her in Halifax, and at the time my brother was a salesman at a local Chrysler dealership, and Chrysler was a sponsor of the event, and they asked Clark, that's my brother, to drive the convertible that would have Colleen Jones sitting up on the back of the car in the parade. And there's a picture, I asked my brother actually to dig it out. There's a picture that exists somewhere of my brother in these really terrible 1982 style sunglasses driving Colleen Jones around, and who knew at that time in 1982 that Colleen Jones would go on to win many championships, up to including several senior championships. And again, not only Nova Scotian curling fans, but curling fans right across the world would be familiar with Colleen Jones. She's been doing it and doing it well for a very long time. So just underway here in this first end. Nova Scotia with the hammer here based on the results of the stones that they throw just before the draw. Closest to the button gets the hammer. And I want to say a big thank you to Michelle Lang and Randy Furby for coming on board and taking care of the play-by-play action and commentary on Sheet D for this evening's final draw. So a nice shot there, as you see, clearing everything out, and Jones now comes over to make sure that BC rock gets as deep as possible, but just a very outer edge of that yellow stone on the right-hand side, biting on the very edge of the 12-foot. So pretty open ice, though, in the middle portion of those rings, and you see it right there. Great to see Nova Scotia in the hunt again at a senior national event. And it's been fun talking to not only the curlers, but their families and volunteers and other attendees as well here, talking about just how much fun it is to have this caliber of curling in the Digby area. And you know, I've talked about it in other draws, but really when you look up and down the rosters of these provincial representatives on the men's and women's side, it's truly a who's who of Canadian curling. I mean, there's names that will harken back to very vivid memories of success for the provincial side as well as the national side for Canada. And Colleen Jones, certainly one of those names. Colleen Jones, ever chomping on that gum. One of the things that you'll always see Colleen doing. Now she comes in, and this is something else you'll see her do quite a bit. She'll get right in the air, and she's in the air of Radford there, really calling on that sweeping, and a nice job by Radford as she puts the neck, arms, shoulders, and everything else into that sweeping and dragged that Nova Scotia stone as deep as can be. So some decision time now for Diane Foster. And sometimes to perhaps the more, I guess, casual curling observer, you might look and say, well, all those rocks are over on the side. I mean, that's not a really big deal. Well, there's been many instances, and actually we had it happen in our draw that we had earlier between Saskatchewan and Northern Ontario, where there was a cluster of rocks at the very back of the rings on the outer portion of the 12-foot, and they actually ended up coming into play and caused the Saskatchewan skip to draw for a single point rather than deal with all the rocks at the back. So just because they may not be in and around the close proximity to that button area doesn't mean that they're not going to come into play. And you see BC now coming down almost that same path, looking to rub that stone out and get a nice little roll over. And that BC rock twists and turns and stops right there on that tee line, full 8 foot. So Colleen Jones, native of Halifax, chatting over things with Nancy Delahunt. Nancy, originally hailing from the grand city of Montreal, Quebec. City I'm quite fond of, probably one of my favorite cities in Canada. The Mediterranean flavor of Montreal, spectacular. If you've ever had the chance to be there, you know what I mean. If not, try to get there sometime. It's beautiful. Something else you'll notice, too, about the curlers at this level, here you are at a national championship, and, you're playing provincial rivals, yet, you see these curlers smiling, having fun. Now, of course, Colleen Jones certainly concentrating there, but, between points, between ends, just so much fun that these curlers are having. So Colleen Jones with skip stones here in this first end. Some takeout weight. She's going to look to peel. Can she get the double? She does. Pushes that other BC yellow rock out. So nice shot there. Nice touch. And it should be, I believe, a score of 2, a 2 count for Colleen Jones. And there you have it. Those rocks, even though they were at the back portion of the house, sitting on the outer edge of that 12-foot, they ended up coming into play. And a nice shot from Diane Foster with her last stone, but Colleen Jones, the wily veteran, comes right down and makes a great shot of her own as she peeled those away. And those couple of rocks, they were barely touching the edge of the 12-foot, but close counts in curling, and they were close enough to count 2 points for Colleen Jones. So a nice start here for the Nova Scotia foursome as they take advantage of having last rock. They score 2, and now they'll curl it back the other way, and the hammer turns back over now to Team British Columbia. There is Nancy Delahunt. Started curling at the ripe old age of 13. I remember 13. I think I might have been trying to steal babysitting jobs from the girls in my neighborhood. Meanwhile, Nancy Delahunt was starting her very long and illustrious curling career. There you see Kim Kelly and Mary Sue Radford. And sometimes the joke that passes around inner curling circles is that, hey, you never see a skip brush. Well, Colleen Jones dispels that potential rumor right there as you saw her jump out and help with the brushing of that opening rock from Delahunt. This is Sherry Heath now. Born in Berwyn, Alberta, started curling when she was 8 years old, and now throws rocks for the blue, red, and yellow of British Columbia. Coming across the face of the sheet here. Looking to put a guard up over on the far side. There hasn't been many stones played over on that side of the sheet, so Heath plays one down there, and we'll see the strategy here from Colleen Jones after she asked for the first one into the rings. We'll see what she asks for here with Delahunt second. A little bit of directional sweeping here, and now they bring it a little more center. Just trying to will that rock a little more over to the screen right. And it'll stop right there, directly across from the British Columbia stone. So a couple of guards in play here early in this second end. So Sherry Heath now. You see that stabilizer in the left hand, more and more curlers turning to that stabilizer. I know I would definitely need one if I was out there sliding around. Nice looking shot here, Heath. Coming right down the middle. This is where you usually start to see any kind of movement, and there it is. They talk about the swing in that ice, and the swing takes effect there as that shot from Heath curls over. She gets the nice little hit and roll and takes the Nova Scotia red rock out of play, and the BC stone, meanwhile, curls over to where you see it there, halfway between the 4-foot and the 8-foot. About maybe a third of that rock covered by the protection out front. We move now into second stone. This is Mary Sue Radford. Radford with her first throw here. Della Hunt and Kim Kelly on the sweep through that opening, no problem at all. And just as Skip Colleen Jones asked for, goes through the middle, angles out the BC yellow, and will sit right there. Second end action here. Perhaps a little less pressure on Colleen Jones and her foursome on the strength of their 4-1 record. Little doubt that they'll make it through to the playoff round. And for British Columbia, as mentioned, they're in a dogfight with Manitoba at 2-3, and BC, having defeated Manitoba earlier today head-to-head, a victory here against Nova Scotia would go a long way into helping British Columbia get into a very busy playoff round starting tomorrow morning. I was handed a color-coded, updated version of the playoff schedule for tomorrow, and after I called a few graduates of MIT, they were able to help me figure out what's going to be happening. So tomorrow morning, we don't know the teams obviously yet because still so much to happen, but on sheet B, we'll have the 6th-seeded men's team taking on the 3rd-seeded men's team, and then on sheet D, the 5th seed on the women's side taking on the 4th seed. So we know the seeds that we'll be seeing on sheets B and D tomorrow morning. We just don't know the teams as of yet. And really, that's because the competition here has been so tight and the curlington's so good. The organizers aren't going to know the teams and the seedings until the conclusion of this draw. So we'll do our best to get updates to you via Twitter this evening and again tomorrow morning before we come on the air. But again, we'll be on the air at 9 a.m. Atlantic time tomorrow on Bella Line TV1 with all of the action. So this second end, a little more busy than we saw in the first in terms of guard action. A couple of guards you see, yellow and red, sitting mid-range, and that yellow British Columbia stone, I think they may have wanted to get that a little bit deeper and in behind the cover, but it'll sit there just above the 12-foot 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championships. Not possible without the help of so many sponsors. Digby Area Recreation Committee would like to thank the platinum sponsors, Town of Digby, Municipality of the District of Digby, the Province of Nova Scotia, Department of Health and Wellness, Bell Canada, and ACOA, the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. Certainly all the sponsors a big part of making this event come together. And we're going to speak to a gentleman involved with the main sponsor and title sponsor of this event, Everest. And we'll speak with Mark Duffy, the president and CEO of Everest, a little later on in the broadcast. We'll bring him on around the 4th end, and hopefully we'll chat into the 4th end break, and we'll hear Mark's thoughts on this event and what he feels about seniors curling and what he'd like to see happen with seniors curling, Digby and beyond. And again, just stay tuned for that coming up in the 4th end. Meantime, second end action here in this one. British Columbia looking to bounce back after giving up 2 in the first. Lots of rocks in play. And this one coming right down the other side. Diane Foster watches that nose hit and driving that stone back. So now a lot of BC yellow hovering around in the guard area, but nothing right now in the scoring zones. In other words, those button 4-foot, 8-foot, and 12-foot curling rings. Kim Kelly, the Halifax native, delivers her rock. She'll look to angle that one out, and she'll do just that. So taking care of one of those BC stones now as we get ever closer to our skip rocks here in this second end. Scott Squires along with the 45 North crew and Bellaline TV1. So glad that you're joining us here for this 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championships. Second time it's been here in Digby. They were here back in 2011 and everybody had such a great time. They thought, why not? Let's come back and we'll do it again. And the town of Digby and surrounding area have certainly opened up their doors, hearts, and kitchens for sure to welcome all of the curlers, team members, officials, volunteers, you name it. Just a great job being done here by the town of Digby. And no matter where you go around town, you'll see signs at all the businesses welcoming the curlers, encouraging them to come in, try the local fare. The great crew of volunteers here at the Digby Curling Club and the Digby Arena doing a great job in the Everest Patch, cooking up local cuisine, comfort food as we like to call it. And the last couple of days, my gosh, it's like I've been living back home again. I've been eating like I ate when I was a kid living at home, and I had my mom cooking for me. So that's another great side of a curling event like this. So Colleen Jones, my goodness, I don't know what she has for breakfast and what she drinks, but I swear she hasn't aged. She looks fabulous. Skip stones here in the second end. Jones trying to deal with all of that traffic that's out in front. Well to the side of those guards. She's going to look to come in around now and get that angle hit. And Delahunt will try and drag that yellow rock out the back. And she does get just enough separation that that's not biting on that 12-foot. And the Jones shooter rolls off to the side and will sit right there. And now Diane Foster with last rock here in this second end will come down. Leanne Ursel, her husband Dan, skipping the men's team here at the seniors. So skip stones here for British Columbia. Nova Scotia, as you see on the scoreboard and behind, putting 2 up in first. And BC here, last rock in 2. So Foster, quick release out of the hack. And Heath and Curtin on the sweeping. More of just keeping a line clean rather than anything else. It's in onto that Jones offer from earlier. And Foster gets the roll over almost to the edge of that 12-foot. So right now, a lot of rocks on your screen, but really, only one that matters right now in terms of points is that yellow rock that you see to the far left, just to the side of the brush being held in place there by Team Nova Scotia. So you see Jones there, as a skip will often do, discussing things even to the very last moment before they settle down into the hack. And again, one of the things I enjoy is always watching the routines that each of the curlers go through when they settle into the hack. They all have their own little routine that they go through, and it's pretty much repeated each and every time they settle into the hack to make a shot. So this is the last throw here for Colleen Jones in this second end. The only one brushing it right now is Kim Kelly. Right down on a sharp angle. A lot of movement on that rock. Gets the hit and the rollout. So now, decision time for Diane Foster. Do you draw in and take a single point? Or do you blank here and carry over the hammer into the third end? You never like to leave points on the table, but the flip side of that is sometimes as a skip with hammer, you really don't like being forced into taking a single point. And credit to Colleen Jones and her team. They've done a good job of setting up this end to have Diane Foster put in this position where she's got to make that decision. Do I take the single, put a point on the board, or do I just put this right through the house, blank it, and then take the hammer into 3 and see if I can set something up a little better. Well, she looks to be throwing a little quieter weight, so it would appear as though Foster might be playing for the points here. Colleen Jones and her team, you see them off to the right of your screen watching intently. She's coming in, and maybe she's going to try and tap back her own rock. She does, so a little different approach. I thought she just might try for the open draw, but she follows a pass she's comfortable with. She taps her own rock back into the ring, scores a single point. So I guess it's a good news, bad news thing. The good news for BC is that they get the point. The bad news is it was a single. Same thing for Nova Scotia. Good news, bad news. Bad news is you give up a point. Good news is, as the team facing the team with the hammer, you forced your opposition into just taking a single point. I want to remind you that Bell Alliant is proud to be the official broadcaster for the 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championships from the Digby Arena and the Digby Curling Club right here in beautiful Digby, Nova Scotia in the Annapolis Valley. Bell Alliant, there's more to love with fiber op. So we'll get things started up here now in this third end. We've had points scored in each of the first 2. Both teams able to score with the hammer. Nova Scotia with 2 in the first. BC with 1 in the second. And we play here in the third. Nova Scotia with the hammer and with the 2-1 lead. And this first stone from British Columbia is played right into the house. So first rock is in the house, and now we'll turn it over to Nancy Delahunt. Delahunt has been on 5 Scotties Championships. She's finished 3rd once and has appeared in 5 World Championships with 2 gold and a silver medal. And she was 3rd at the National Seniors that were held in Abbotsford, British Columbia. So certainly, again, when you look up and down the lineup of this Nova Scotia team, just so much experience, not only on the national level, but the international level as well. And sometimes, that can be a little intimidating when you're a team coming in, and it's not to take away anything from any of the other teams, but when you come in and you look at a decorated team like this Nova Scotia team with a lineup like Delahunt, Radford, Kelly, and Jones, sometimes you might almost be a point or 2 behind before you even hit the ice. And a nice shot there as they angle out. And only a couple of rocks thrown here, but keeping it clean here in this third end. Here in lovely Digby, a nice sunny day here today. If you're not 100% sure where Digby is located, it is on the Annapolis Valley down toward the southern tip of the province, a little over 2 hours from the capital city of Halifax, Nova Scotia. And the other way, about an hour from Yarmouth, which would be the largest municipality on the southern tip of Nova Scotia. And the interesting thing about the Yarmouth-Digby area is if you're in Halifax North and you want to know what the weather's going to be like and you're wondering if a storm is going to be worse or maybe not as bad as it's being predicted, you kind of wait to see what starts happening in the Yarmouth-Digby area, and then it kind of moves north. So quite often you hear people saying, it's actually turned to rain now around Yarmouth-Digby, so maybe it won't be so bad. British Columbia in those ever-present bright BC colors. Takeout weight being thrown here. Just some clean line brushing and a nice look as they come down. So it appears that BC is intent on keeping this end pretty clean, and that's a pretty smart thing to do. And perhaps that was in the mind of Diane Foster when she decided not to blank that second end and to go ahead and tap her own rock back for the single point. Maybe it was in her mind, okay, you know what? Let's take the chance, get a point when we can take it, and then we'll come in the third and really try to keep it clean and prevent Nova Scotia from getting any kind of a big end. Now, the thinking switches over to Colleen Jones, seeing the way, and again, we're only early on here in the third end, but for Colleen Jones, you got to start thinking, okay, the end is seeming to play out this way. Do I maybe keep this as a clean end, blanket and then carry the hammer over into the even numbered end in the fourth? Or do I just stick to the game plan of maybe keeping the pressure on British Columbia and putting some more points up? So a very deep corner guard put up there by Nova Scotia, so perhaps that answers the question. Although if BC comes down and peels this guard off, it would be very apparent that BC is ready to counter any potential offensive move that Nova Scotia is going to make here in this third end. And, well, staying true to the script that they're writing here in this third end, once again we see British Columbia peel off that Nova Scotia guard. Colleen Jones, as you see so many curlers, that ever-present stopwatch on the hip, always timing the ice, timing the weights. And an update for you now from our feature game on Sheet D between Alberta and Manitoba on the men's side. Manitoba with a 2-1 lead, play there in the third end. Alberta with the hammer. Again, that's our feature game on Sheet D, being called by Michelle Lang and Randy Furby. I'm Scott Squires with you on our feature game on Sheet B. It's women's action at Nova Scotia and British Columbia. An important game, more so for British Columbia, just in terms of the standings. With the 4-1 record, Nova Scotia looks good for the next round, and British Columbia really could pave the way for themselves if they can win here. Well, there's the hit. Now, I'm not sure if that's the result that they wanted. To this point, they've been peeling the Nova Scotia stones and rolling out. This particular case, they peeled it, but they didn't roll out. They hit it a little thicker, perhaps, than they would have liked. And the BC shooter sticks around, which takes us now to the vice for this Nova Scotia team, Kim Kelly. Kelly, pretty straight line on this. You just heard Colleen Jones in the background say, yeah, you're fine. And she is indeed fine as she nose hits that BC rock. Takes it out of the back of the house, and Nova Scotia now will sit one. So just with a shot or two, kind of the complexion of this game, or excuse me, of this end, maybe has changed gears just a little bit. We'll see what BC has an answer here now. If it's going to be whatever you do, I'll do the same. So they do take out the Nova Scotia stone, but instead of a hit and stick, they get a bit of a roll. So the Nova Scotia stone goes out, and the BC rock rolls a little more over to the side. Kim Kelly now with her second of two shots here in this third end. Nova Scotia does have last rock here in end number 2. Remember, it's 8 end draws here at this Canadian Senior Championship, sponsored by Everest. So Nova Scotia kind of reversing tie a little bit. We saw BC earlier peel out a Nova Scotia stone and then roll to one side, and we just saw the same thing there as we get a nice look at Diane Foster gliding down the ice. But Nova Scotia there peeling out the BC rock and then rolling over where you see it right there. And there you see Jones again in the background. Always talking strategy, always working on that next move. Meanwhile, Diane Foster, very upright in that hack. And keeping a close eye on it now as she lets go of her throw. Sweeping just to keep it straight. And right on the nose. So Diane Foster playing a style here where she's doing very similar to Colleen Jones as Colleen Jones did to Diane back in that second end. Putting Colleen in a situation where she may have to make a decision whether or not she wants to take just the single point or perhaps blank and take the hammer over into an even numbered end. And usually you'll see a skip choose to blank to get the hammer in an even number end, and it's just because it's an 8-end game. Typically, if things play out where each team scores in their own end with hammer, conventional wisdom tells you if you have the hammer in an even-ended end, you would end up having the hammer in the final end. Now, it doesn't always work out that way, but that's just part of the thinking, and that goes into a skip when they're trying to decide whether or not they want to blank an end. So Colleen Jones with the nose hit takes out the BC Rock and will sit there for 1. So you've got to believe that Diane Foster is going to come down. And there you see the brush placement right next to the stone. So that tells you that this is going to be pretty much a straight-on takeout weight from Diane Foster. And if she can hit this and peel out her own rock. Now, does she want to hit and stick and make it easier for Colleen? We'll have to see. 2 ways you can go here. You can hit and roll out, or you can hit and stick. I guess if you hit and roll out, you're making it even easier for Colleen Jones to decide. So Foster leaning over in the background, watching this one come in. Just a little straight line brushing, and she will hit and stick. So that will put it on to Jones now what she wants to do. Does Jones try to hit and stick, take a single, or does she want to maybe peel this one out and blank and then take the hammer over into end number 4? And the other interesting thing about curling is when you think you've got it figured out and when you think you know exactly what a skip is going to do, sometimes they'll pull the old switcheroo on you and do something that you weren't expecting. And we've seen a couple of instances of that during the first couple of days here of this Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championship. And it's been fun to watch. So there is that steely-eyed glare of Colleen Jones. Watching it right down the ice. Look at that. So she's on it, and there it is. The hit, the peel, and the blank. So Jones does indeed blank end number 3. She'll carry the hammer over into the 4th end, maintaining that 2-1 lead. So a very, very tightly contested draw here between these two bi-coastal teams. West Coast being represented, of course, by Diane Foster and British Columbia, and the East Coast in this particular game represented by Colleen Jones and her Mayflower Curling Club rink. So in just a moment here, I'm going to be joined by Mark Duffy, the president and CEO of Everest. Mark's got the headset on, and as soon as I get the green light from our director, producer, switcher, audio, Mr. Everything, that we're good to go, we'll bring Mark on board here and have a little bit of chat, not only about this game, but about the event overall. As we see play underway here in the 4th end. So we'll wait for this first offering from Nancy Delahunt and Team Nova Scotia, and then we'll welcome Mark Duffy into the broadcast. There's a good shot at Delahunt as she watches this one down the ice. Very quiet weight being thrown here. Kelly and Radford really working it, trying to get it to come over as much as possible. It just ticks on that yellow guard out front and will sit there dead center on that center line at the top of the 12-foot. So with that, let's welcome in Mr. Mark Duffy, President and CEO of Everest. Mark, welcome to the broadcast.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Great to be here.
So I guess, first of all, I know throughout the couple of days of draws that we've been doing here, we've been talking about the event as a whole, and we've been talking about what Everest is, who Everest is, what you do, and what you're doing here in terms of sponsoring this event and really trying to raise the awareness and the profile of seniors curling. But better to hear it from you. What exactly does Everest want to do here, and why did you want to get involved with senior curling in Canada?
Well, we see seniors curling in Canada as a great opportunity. A number of years ago, the seniors curling championship was probably one of the most popular in the country, and it's fallen off in the last several years for a number of reasons. But we think that it has. There's a real opportunity here to bring it back to the forefront and to be able to really regenerate the interest in seniors, primarily because of the demographics of curlers. There are, the boomer-focused group. There's a lot of interest, and there are just some great curlers, and we're watching a few of them right here that have historically been very, very involved. But once they got into the seniors, a lot of that visibility declined. We think that there's a lot of folks who would like to see them again, but we're going to have to kind of change things up and do things a little differently than have been done historically to get that interest back, and I think we're being able to do some of that.
So we're just a couple of rocks in here to this fourth end. A couple of yellow BC stones out front as we see another delivery coming here from Team British Columbia. 2-1 Nova Scotia leading here. Nova Scotia blanking the last end and has the hammer here in the fourth. And I had the pleasure of meeting you last night at the Everest Patch after our final draw. And when we first started chatting, I know in the back of my mind I'm thinking, wait a second, that accent. Hey, he's not Canadian. Where's this guy from? So why don't you tell folks, where you're from and how you were introduced to the great Canadian game of curling?
Well, it's great. Well, you've probably picked up I have a bit of a southern accent. I'm from Houston, Texas, although did grow up in Pennsylvania, playing hockey growing up, and actually going to hockey camp in St. Catharines, Ontario, where spent a lot of my summers and was very active in ice sports. So it's not completely foreign, but never did curling growing up. Never really even knew that much about it. But we got involved in curling because, number one, we saw a great opportunity, and this is a fabulous sport. I mean, I explained it to people in the United States by explaining to them that, in my estimation, curling is like baseball in the United States. It's a sport that a lot of people grew up playing. Lots of people still play it. It's very, very popular. It's America's game is baseball. Canada's game is curling, and you put it in that kind of perspective, people can relate to it a lot better, at least in the United States. But what we see is a great opportunity, and it was really introduced by our partners at World Financial Group. World Financial Group at one time was the sponsor of this event a number of years ago. In fact, the last time it was in Digby, they were the sponsor. They are our exclusive distributor, and they said for a long time you ought to really start to look at that and think about it, and so I did. And for a number of years I got to meet some of the folks in the sport, primarily Randy Ferbey and Jennifer Jones, and this whole thing kind of developed over a bit of time, but we're really excited about it right now.
Well, I know we're certainly excited to have you here and to have Everest on board, and we'll just kind of catch up quickly with what's happening here in this fourth end. Again, Nova Scotia leading 2-1. They scored 2 in the first, BC with 1 in the second, and then Nova Scotia with the hammer. Colleen Jones deciding to blank the third as she didn't like the way it was settling out. We just saw a great shot moments ago by Nova Scotia as they cleared out some traffic in the rings, and now you see it, a trifecta of rocks right across the top of that 12-foot there. So a little bit of protection, and something that both of these skips now may be able to try and take advantage of. 2 of them yellow from BC, 1 of them red from Nova Scotia. And you see now Leanne Ursel, we're into the Vice Rocks here in this fourth end. And you talk about seniors curling, and maybe to the casual observer, they hear the term seniors curling and maybe they're thinking about something completely different. But when you really look into it and you're here on the ground, you see just exactly what you're talking about. It's some of the great iconic curlers in Canada who may not be competing on that main level for a Scotties or a Brier, but they're still really great curlers and they still have a competitive fire. How do you maybe get that messaging out there and get the perception out there that, forget about the title of it, this is just some great curling?
Right. That's been the issue, I think, that the seniors has faced. I think first goes with the name. I don't think everybody here likes to be called a senior that's playing in this, because when they were 49 years old, they weren't, and then become 50, and they are. But I think the way to do it is not to kind of do it the way it's always been done, and that's kind of to change it up. And that's one of the things that we've introduced, and it's going to be here on Saturday, is the second Everest Furby National Pro-Am. And what we've done is we've, in conjunction with World Financial Group, put in a program in over 200 curling clubs this last year, where people can curl if they're at age 50 and above. Every time they curl, they sign in, they get a ticket into the draw, and we've picked 4 people at random from across Canada who are going to be actually joining us on Friday here. And they're going to be in a Pro-Am with 4 great curlers, and it'll be Team Jones and Team Furby with 2 pros and two our VIP amateurs, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of buzz about it, and even today, because I'm on social media quite a bit, and a lot of Twitter action today coming from Curling Canada and other curling Twitter sites promoting this event, and it's big news, and it is. You know what? And the fact that it's a Pro-Am, and it's going to be fun, but there's still going to be that competitive. You talked about Randy Furby, Jennifer Jones, and you're going to have 2 other great iconic Canadian curlers, Brad Jacobs, Al Hackner, and then you're going to have those 4 senior curling members that you said won a contest from across the country. And I have it on pretty good authority that all of the curlers are going to be mic'd up for the Pro-Am. So I think that's a good event.
That's true.
Just how excited are you about it? And what can folks expect when they watch it on Saturday on Bell Alliant TV1?
Well, it's something I think if you're a curling fan, you're going to want to watch because we've made it fun. Everybody will be mic'd up. There'll be actually a Masters of Ceremonies on the ice. Jackie Ray is going to be here to do it for the 2nd year. We're really excited about that. And so it's fun. It's a way to make the sport very, very approachable. You'll be like being on one of the folks on the ice with them. We kind of I used the analogy, I used a baseball analogy earlier, but it's kind of like the home run derby before the All-Star game. And this is just it's for fun, but boy, it's competitive. And it's going to be competitive this year because Jennifer won it last year and in the inaugural, and Randy hadn't forgotten about that. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. These folks have been really excited about it. Really excited to have Al and Brad here as well. I was actually talking with Brad at the Continental Cup, and he was very, very fired up about being here because I think they're going to be able to see everybody that watches. It's just going to be a completely different curling experience. It's going to be, full-on, very competitive curling, but you're going to feel like you're on the team as well. And there's going to be a lot of good-natured ribbing and jokes and some fun stuff. So it'll be very, very exciting. Last year when we had it on monitors, and nobody was moving around. Everybody was watching it. I think it's actually perfectly made for television or video, and it's just going to be a lot of fun.
Well, and when you think about it as well, what an amazing opportunity for these 4 seniors curlers from across Canada. And as you and I were talking last night, this contest was nothing to do with skill level, how long you've been curling. You could be somebody like myself that maybe dropped into a local curling club and said, hey, I'm going to take up curling this year. I rate for seniors, why not? They're going to have an opportunity to take to the ice with 4 of the very best of the best that Canada has ever produced from a curling standpoint. So what an amazing moment that's going to be for them. How does that make you feel knowing that you're providing that opportunity?
Oh, we love it. It's so much fun. Last year was a great event. We really had a fun time with it, but we didn't really know how it was going to come off. We didn't know if people would be really into it, not into it. You really don't know until you try it. And it just came off spectacularly well. And we got a lot of feedback from people. It's the first time Curling Canada had seen it, and what we were trying to do. And once they had seen it, and we actually filmed all of it, and we were able to show people, then they went, we like that. That looks like a lot of fun. Yeah. And it's I think it'll be that way here too. And you're going to, in one spot, you're going to have 4 of the best curlers in history all right here, very approachable. We're going to have an autograph session beforehand and everything. So it'll be a real kind of a fun time right before the championship game.
So don't go anywhere. I want to talk to you some more, but going to focus in here on the last couple of rocks of this end. Colleen Jones, in her masterful fashion, really setting up the potential for a nice end here. And if you wondered why she blanked 3, all you got to do is take a look at what her foursome has done here in this fourth end. Tough situation here for Diane Foster. A very wide array of red rocks you see right across your screen. Colleen Jones has split the rings with her 2 reds either side on the 12-foot. At that other stone that is sitting shot rock right now in the 8-foot. So Diane Foster is really going to have to reach into her bag of tricks and pull out one here, because Colleen Jones could be looking at a pretty big end here in end number 4 before we go into the fourth end break. She's coming down now. She's going to look to tap it off, and I think she might have been hoping for maybe a roll the other way. So now Colleen Jones, the veteran, has an opportunity here to put a 3 spot on the board, and all of a sudden could turn this 1-point lead into a 4-point lead and really put a little pressure on the shoulders of Diane Foster and her BC foursome and give them something to ponder in that fourth end break. And that's the thing with Colleen Jones. You think you have her in check, like so many of the great curlers. She never panics. She never overthinks anything. She just kind of sticks to the game plan, looks at her 4 or 5 options that she's got, and then almost like a cobra, you think that it's not going to strike, and then just as quick as that, she strikes. So she's looking to strike here for a 3 spot in end number 4. So there you see the sweeping now. And Colleen Jones, as you'll see her do quite often, follows it down. Mary Sue Radford there as well. And no pressure, no problem. 3 points for Colleen Jones and Team Nova Scotia. So they take the blank in 3 and get what they want in 4, and that's a crooked number. They put 3 on the board. So we'll go to the fourth end break. Nova Scotia leading BC 5-1, but don't go anywhere. We're going to continue our conversation now with Mark Duffy, the president and CEO of the title sponsor of this 2016 Canadian Championship, Everest. And I know that you don't like to talk about Everest and what the company does, because you really are about the mission statement with this senior curling event and raising the profile and making it something that is on par with a Brier or a Scotties. But, you know, I've been doing some research on the company. I've been talking to folks about it, a little bit about what Everest does. It's an amazing service.
Well, thank you. Well, with Everest, we're a funeral concierge service, and most people don't know what it means. But it's we actually work with large life insurance companies to provide a benefit to people that have to deal with a life insurance claim, to help people plan and negotiate everything a funeral at the time of need. So. You buy a life insurance policy either individually or you get one through work, and if we're connected with that, if somebody passes away, you call us. Everest would help, and we have senior advisors, licensed funeral directors who would work with you, figure out what it is you would need, negotiate for you at any funeral home anywhere in the world. And we then put all the plans in place, and makes the whole process a lot simpler, saving thousands of dollars in the process.
Now, our wonderful director Chuck wants to give you a little camera time, so slide your chair over this way just a little bit. We'll let the folks at home see what this handsome gentleman from Houston by way of Pennsylvania looks like, so you can look right out there. And if there's anybody you want to say hello to, because I know this is being watched literally right around the world, now's your chance, Mark.
Well, just thanks everybody for great. We'd like to have this. This is first time it's been on video in a long time, and we're glad to have it back. You had no idea we were going to put you on camera. Surprise! I did not.
It's okay. You look great.
Thank you.
But, getting back to Everest, and we won't let you talk about it too much more, because again, I know that you like to focus more on what the company does in terms of this event. But who is it available to, and how can you access this product?
Well, we sell the service in Canada and the United States. We cover over 25 million people right now. And the primary easiest way is to contact a World Financial Group agent. We have a life insurance policy with our service attached to it for between either $5,000 to $35,000 worth of coverage. Comes with it, and you can get it that way. So just talk to anybody at World Financial Group, and they can take care of it.
And the website is www.everestfuneral.ca.
That's it.
Now, we're not going to let you go. We've talked about, how you kind of were introduced to curling and how the evolution kind of came with World Financial Group talking to you and then you getting involved. We know that where things are this year with this second event in the Everest Furby National Program. So we know that things are growing, things are building, going in the right direction. But where do you want to see it go? What's next on the evolutionary chain for this event and for seniors curling and Everest's involvement?
Well, we'd like to get the seniors back to the level of Briars or Scotties, and I think we can do it. We've got a great group that's been assembled to work on this, primarily in Toronto, have done a fabulous job of putting this together. We have a great team. They'll all be here tomorrow, by the way. And I think it's doing things differently. It's the Pro-Am. It's how we approach different things. Make it a little more accessible, more fun, just a little bit different. This is a great opportunity just because of the fact we've got these legendary curlers that are just right here. And, I think people just probably forget that's there.
Yeah.
And we've got to raise awareness. We're going to do it in a lot of different ways. Social media will be one of those. It just wasn't available 10 years ago. Events like this, be able to put this together, and we're excited to get it going.
Well, you know what? We are so delighted to be here, and I think it's great what you're doing for the great game of curling in Canada and bringing back this senior event to the level that it should be at, and we certainly thank you for doing this. Mark Duffy, President and CEO of for doing this, and continued success.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. So we'll let Mark take a break now, maybe take the headset off and listen to some of the commentary. I know he was interested in having listen in to what Michelle Lang and Mark Furby were having to say over on Sheet D for that contest in Manitoba and Alberta. And again, very much appreciate Mark Duffy, the President and CEO of Everest, stopping by. And something, you had to listen to what he had to say, but I can honestly tell you that talking to Mark last night, away from the cameras, away from all of this, his enthusiasm and excitement for what Everest is doing is absolutely genuine. He loves this game of curling, and he is determined. If anybody's going to be able to take this seniors curling to the level that it deserves to be at, I think he, along with legendary curlers like Randy Furby, are going to be able to do it. So stay tuned. Seniors curling is on the rebound. We'll step aside for a quick second. I know that Nova Scotia, BC, about to hit the ice, and well, hey, forget the break. We're right back to it. See, I got Mark on here so long, we talked right through the full break. So bring you up to speed here. We'll recap the scoring for you. It's 5-1 after 4 ends. Nova Scotia scoring 2 in the first. Then BC gets a single of their own in the second. Nova Scotia didn't like the way things were turning out in the third end, so Colleen Jones decided to blank. And then, boy, oh boy, Colleen Jones really got it going there in the fourth end. She hung 3 on the board, and that's where we stand here in this fifth end. A 5-1 lead for Nova Scotia over British Columbia in a very important must-win game for British Columbia if they want to control their own destiny in terms of the playoff seedings going into tomorrow. And it's hard to believe this draw this evening across the board will end the round robin portion of this event. It has really flown by. I mean, we get right at it tomorrow morning with the crossovers in the playoff. We've got the seeding for the championship already in front of us. All we know is what teams are going to be playing in terms of 4 versus 5, 3 versus 6, 2 versus 8, so on and so on. What we don't know, and we won't know until the end of all the draws today, is what team seed where and who will play each other. So that's kind of exciting, not knowing. It's kind of going to be the same in all the curling teams. Talking to a number of them prior to this draw, they are just as curious as we are as to who they're going to play and what time and all of that. So it'll be a restless night for a lot of these curlers as they will not know their opponent until much later on this evening. So early fifth end action here. A very high guard put in place by British Columbia, and a couple of rocks in the rings now by Nova Scotia. And Colleen Jones, typically you get her up by a couple of points She typically does not let up whatsoever, and I expect Colleen Jones and her Mayflower foursome representing Nova Scotia to really keep the pressure on here and force Diane Foster to really make some tremendous shots. So they come down the other side. Couple of guards that you see in place there, and there's a look at the scoreboard. That tells the tale. 5 for Nova Scotia, 1 for British Columbia, and Colleen Jones fairly well in control to this juncture. Still a long way to go, but Colleen Jones knows what to do when she's got a lead. And an uncharacteristic miss. You don't often see that out of this Nova Scotia force, and they were looking to peel out that high guard. Instead, they missed the guard. Actually end up taking out one of their own Nova Scotia rocks. So again, an uncharacteristic mistake for the Colleen Jones foursome there. And we'll see if Diane Foster and her side might be able to push that door a little wider open, considering the crack that they had just squeak a little bit open from the Nova Scotia side. This BC team, as mentioned, coming in here with a record of 2-3, tied with Manitoba. But again, this BC team beat Manitoba earlier today. So head-to-head, BC would have the tiebreaker. But if they lose and then Manitoba wins, that's all for naught. So BC really wants to control their own destiny here and not leave it up to the curling gods. And you hear some of the calls permeating through our camera mics down on the ice, coming from some of the action taking place here at the Digby Arena and the Digby Curling Club. All 5 sheets in action here this evening. And again, this will take care of the round robin play at this 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championship. And Nova Scotia taking care of one of those yellow BC guards, and the shooter rolls out. So things a little more opened up now. Just the 2 guards over on that right-hand side of your screen, and then the 1 Nova Scotia rock in play, 12-foot. Had a nice chat with the BC team prior to this match. They were looking forward to taking on Nova Scotia here, and we're also happy about the live webcast that we're doing here on Bellaline TV1. A lot of family and back home in BC, and as well as Quebec and Alberta watching this. And we see Colleen Jones in there trying to drag that BC rock back just a little bit. I would expect now that Jones will ask for that BC rock to be taken out. And Jones now with the 4-point lead is not going to want to give any kind of opportunity for Foster to put multiple points on the board. And our feature game over on sheet D, just coming out of the 4th end break. Michelle Lang and Randy Furby bringing the commentary to you there. Great to have both of those fine folks on board. Of course, legendary and iconic curler Randy Furby. Great to have him on board. And as well, Michelle Lang, she knows her stuff, and despite the fact that she's a gigantic Saskatchewan Roughriders fan, I kind of like her. She's nice. And I think that Michelle and the entire Lang family may be trying to convert me into a Saskatchewan Roughriders fan, as they pointed out that there is absolutely nowhere that you can buy Montreal Alouettes merchandise, and apparently you can buy Roughriders stuff everywhere. Perhaps I'll just drop by the supermarket, carve it out, jam it on my head. Go Riders. So Leanne Ursel, the vice for this BC team, with her throw, throwing a very quiet weight here. And she looks to come in around those 2 guards and see if she can nestle it as deep as possible. Freeze it up against that rock at the back, but it'll stop right there, and it's just to the side of that Nova Scotia stone. So there you see Colleen in the rings, A lot of ice to Kim Kelly, her vice. Kelly winds and delivers. This Nova Scotia team only one blemish on their record, and that was from Newfoundland and Labrador. A big win for the ladies from Newfoundland and Labrador in that one. So there you see Kim Kelly. That's why Colleen Jones gave her so much ice. A lot of swing to this ice when you're throwing a quiet weight. And it curls right over and nestles right in amongst a little cluster there that you see sitting behind the tee line in the 8-foot. It's a great evening of curling here, and it's been a great week of curling so far, and we've been very excited to bring you all of the action on sheets B and D from this 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championship. And of course, we'll have all the playoff to and including the gold medal championship games on Saturday. And as you heard us discuss earlier with Mark Duffy from Everest, what a fun time it's going to be Saturday at noon Atlantic time when we have that Everest Furby Pro-Am. Well, Mark mentioned it. I think there's going to be a little bit of good-hearted ribbing, some jokes, but you know what? I expect maybe even a trick shot perhaps, who knows? But the competitive spirit will definitely be there. And he talked about it. You know, Jennifer Jones won last year, and an ultra-competitive gentleman like Randy Furby, he's going to want to bounce back, and he's going to want to have bragging rights for at least the next year. So that's going to be fun to watch. And if you be here in Digby to watch it, you can, of course, watch it right here on bellalliant.ca/TV1. And make sure you tell all your friends, email them the link, tweet them the link, put it on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, write an old-fashioned conventional letter, send it express post so it gets there overnight. But make sure you let folks know that not only all of this championship curling, but the Pro-Am event as well will be live on Bell Alliant TV1. So there you see Colleen Jones, so determined. I mean, you look at that expression, you wouldn't know whether she's up 5-1 or trailing 5-1. Mark champion. Focused, regardless of the situation. Jones talking about sweeping it for line only. Kelly now working it easily by those guards. Now Randy jumps in. Jones says go hard. And it'll just tap up against the yellow BC rock. And again, what a log jam of stones on that one side of the sheet. All of the rocks in place, save for one over there on the screen, and that's exactly what Diane Foster is going to be looking at when she settles into the hack and gets ready to throw here. We are in the fifth end. BC with the last rock here. And when you see that many rocks in play, it's very difficult to determine what the outcome is going to be in terms of points. So first rock here for Diane Foster in this fifth end. And this could really be an integral end in terms of determining what's going to happen going forward into the sixth end and beyond. That's really starting to move over now. Yeah, they're by that guard. Now the question is, can they get by that other guard? No. They're going to wreck on that guard, tap it just a little bit, and it will slide over. Now, Colleen Jones. You see that mess of rocks over there on the right-hand side. Now Jones and Delahunt discussing what they want to do over on this side, splitting the rings. But if you look at the right-hand side, the BC stone right there is sitting shot rock. And then the three rocks right behind it, red of Nova Scotia, they would be 2, 3, and 4. And then the yellow over here would be a fifth shot. And then on the other side, that stone there. So is Colleen Jones looking at coming down this right side and perhaps tapping on that Nova Scotia rock that's all by itself on the other side and trying to angle it over and sit shot rock and really make life difficult for Diane Foster. We've seen some expert shot making here during almost 3 days of curling competition. And if you want to put your money on anybody making a shot when they need it, it's this lady right here. Scotia's own Colleen Jones, playing on home soil here in Digby. So, of course, she would have some biased fans in attendance cheering on the home side Nova Scotia team. She says weight's fine. Colleen Jones, there's no one better at directing traffic. She's telling them to go. Now she's telling them to make it move. So she doesn't go over to that other one. She's trying to draw it in. And once Delahunt steps aside, we'll be able to see where it sits. So she doesn't perhaps get it as deep as she wanted. I'm sure she wanted to bring it in just a little further and perhaps have it maybe just ease right up against that shot rock of British Columbia. But she doesn't get it deep enough. But again, depending on what Foster can do here, Nova Scotia, their red rocks absolutely enveloping that one BC yellow. So that's a whole lot of traffic out front. So Foster trying to see if perhaps she has an avenue to go through that rock just in the foreground there to the left. Other rock to the right just outside the 12-foot. So Diane Foster in this fifth end, trailing by 4 with the hammer, will settle into the hack and get ready to deliver her final stone here of this fifth end. My daughter, 10-year-old Sophia, would be so very pleased with Diane's brush color, hot pink. My daughter's absolute favorite color is pink, followed closely by purple. She would get into curling just for the colors. So last rock here for Foster. Big moment in this game. Big moment in this tournament for British Columbia. Foster coming down now, as you'll see, based on that center line, you'll just see how much movement there is in that rock. And Foster, as we pull back there to try to get a look, Foster comes up very light. So I believe it is only a single point for British Columbia. So all of those rocks in play, out of 8 rocks thrown by British Columbia, 7 of them were in play either as guards or in. And through all of it, because of the rock placement of Nova Scotia, all those rocks in play, 1 point. A single point scored by British Columbia. So through all of that, if you just came in and took a look at all those rocks, you'd think, oh, this is going to be, someone's going to score about 7 points here. Well, because of the way it works, it starts from the button out. Whoever's closest to the button, those count. And Nova Scotia did a good job of placing their rocks to nullify a lot of those BC yellow. So through all of that on the board, and I guess the important factor is Nova Scotia maintains the lead, and now they have hammer again in an even numbered end. And unfortunate, you know, when you're having to throw your last rock and you've got to throw such quiet weight trying to draw in, Foster just came up a little bit light and couldn't get the range. And now again we see this rock not even going to get over the hog line. So first rock from BC here won't even count as it gets taken away, as it doesn't cross the hog line. So BC perhaps feeling the pressure jitters just a little bit. That's back-to-back shots. The last shot of the fifth end from Skip Foster, and then the first shot of the sixth end from the front end lead, Sherry Heath, both coming up very light. So Nova Scotia, they will not mind that one little bit. So they put their first rock right into the rings. And there you see the score in behind, same as on our scoreboard, 5-2. That big number on the board there is the 3 in the 4. Jones, and again, Colleen Jones making the decision in the third end to blank and then take the hammer into 4, and just some masterful curling in that fourth end, spreading her rocks out beautifully in the house, making it quite hard for Diane Foster to get any kind of offense, let alone defense, working. And that 3, really the difference right now, as the lead is 3 points here in this 6th end. So Nova Scotia, we'll see now if they just kind of play conservative and defensive. Although in the last end, that certainly wasn't the case, as we mentioned, just a plethora of rocks were in play. But through it all, BC coming away with just the single point. So Delahunt comes down, similar path, and now a couple of Nova Scotia rocks sitting on the far side. Take a moment here and thank some more of the sponsors of the 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championship. Thank you going out to the bronze sponsors, Grant Thornton, Digby Fire Department, Bellevaux Motors, Claire Dodge Chrysler Jeep, Bruce Automotive Group, and AVR and CKDY. Just some more of the great sponsors helping to come together to make this 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championship possible. And on behalf of the Digby Area Recreation Committee, a thank you going out to all the sponsors. Columbia now deciding to come down that same path and put a rock over onto that side, push back some of those Nova Scotia rocks. And again, I guess if you're BC, what have you got to lose? Let's put some rocks in play here and see if we can get a miss out of Nova Scotia and set something up. And again, BC would be looking to play for the steal here. You've got to think, as we see Nova Scotia peel off, do they get the double? They run it back. Look at that. I'm not sure if they called that or not, to go back to the pool days. Sometimes you make a great shot, your partner was didn't call that. Hey, it went in. I'm not sure if they actually called that double, but the way that that rock rolled over and took out that other red stone, that ended up working out very well for Nova Scotia as they clean out some of the rocks that were in play. And sometimes better to be lucky than good. Not saying that was the there that it was luck, but certainly the shot turned out well for Team Nova Scotia. And not that I profess to be a sports psychologist, but now you start to pay attention to some of the body language of British Columbia, and a little bit of a sag in the shoulders, kind of a nervous expression. And sometimes you don't want it to happen, but it's human nature that, you know, the thoughts start to creep in that, gosh, you know, no matter what we're doing here, we just can't get anything going against these girls from Nova Scotia. Again, it's hard. The highest level professional will tell you that, you know, sometimes they have those moments where the doubts creep in. And Nova Scotia, again, just methodical, coming down, peeling off that BC stone, rolling off to the side. Just very straight, very calm, cool, and collected in their approach. And if this Nova Scotia women's team can get on a roll, they could do some damage here at this senior. There's a smile on the face of Leanne Ursel. Nice to see as she exchanged words there with Kim Kelly from Team Nova Scotia. And that comes back to what I was talking about, and I've been talking about all tournament long, is the fellowship and camaraderie and sportsmanship that exists amongst curlers. I cover a lot of different sports, a lot of different events, and yes, it exists in hockey, basketball, football, whatever, baseball on down the line. But until you come and you experience a curling bonspiel or a curling national event, even a provincial event, it's really hard to explain just the camaraderie and friendship and fellowship that goes on. And these curlers really are friends. You know, these two teams will be just as likely to be sitting in the Everest patch after this game, sharing a beverage and sharing a story. Maybe even talking about some of the shots that were made or not made. And that, to me, is what really endears curling to me and makes it enjoyable for me when I come to these events. And if you have a chance and you're in the Digby area, you have a chance to come out and support the local area and be a part of this event and get to watch this curling live, please do so. We're glad to have you watching on Bella Lion TV1, but if you can come here to Digby and experience this live, what an opportunity to see some of the best curlers in Canada playing right in your own backyard if you're in this area. So Colleen Jones with the brush placement, calling for the shot from her vice, Kim Kelly. Kim Kelly, well, we talked about the accolades and experience of Colleen Jones. Kim Kelly, it would be much the same. She's been a member of Canadian Championship teams all throughout the 90s. She finished first in the Canadian Mixed back in 2003. She's played at the Worlds in 99, 2001, 2002, 03, 04, winning the Worlds in 01 and 04. So my gosh, I mean, honestly, a lot of good curlers here at this event. Really, you could take almost any one of the curlers on this Nova Scotia team and make them a skip and build a team around them. That good, that experienced. And what a treat it is living here in Nova Scotia to have Colleen Jones and this team representing the province. And you know what? On the men's side, equally as good. Nova Scotia men's team as well. British Columbia, I'll give them credit though, like all of the teams here, they're not going to roll over and they will not hand this to Colleen Jones. They won't make it easy. They will keep playing here and they'll keep hoping for some kind of break or opportunity to maybe have something happen here and put a few points on the board and get back in this one. This one comes down, just taps on that Nova Scotia, gets a little roll over to the top of the 12-foot. So there you see a couple of rocks at the very top of the 12-foot. One on one side and then split right over to the other side, both belonging to BC. And then to the left of your screen, you see there another grouping of stones. As we get into skip stones here now, Nova Scotia with the hammer here in this sixth end. 5-2. Recap the scoring for you. Nova Scotia with 2 in the first. BC with 1 in the second. Nova Scotia blanked the third. Then came back and scored 3 in the fourth. British Columbia with 1 in 5. And we play here in the sixth end. Skip stones coming and Nova Scotia with the hammer. Jones locks in the shot, envisions what she wants to do, and now will look to make it happen with her first throw here in this sixth end. Saying whoa, wanting them off on the curling. Radford stays on it just for line. Nose hit on the BC, drives it back, and Colleen Jones' rock will sit right there. So you see Foster now placing the broom, saying she wants to come over on that other side. Foster hoping for a Colleen Jones mistake and see if she can't steal something here in this end. Tough to do against this Jones team. So Foster with a few final words before she grips the stopwatch and slides back down to her position. And you know, I'm even amazed just the way that these curlers are able to propel themselves down the ice and not fall. That is even impressive to me. I have a hard time walking on ice in my driveway. So Diane Foster settles in and delivers her first of 2 here. Or sorry, her last shot as Nova Scotia has the hammer. So final shot here for British Columbia. Heath and Curtin just with an obligatory brush, just trying to keep it clean so it doesn't pick on anything. Looking to come through that opening. She does. And not the result she was looking for. I think she might have been looking for a tap on that red rock that you see just above the yellow. Maybe get a little rollover, but a tough shot given the narrow opening that she had to come through. And I think you just saw her look back opening and think that maybe she had a little more space than she initially thought. However, a good effort by Diane Foster. And now this final rock squarely in the hands of Colleen Jones. A bit of a grin creeping across the lips of Colleen. Colleen, of course, an accomplished broadcaster as well. We've been seeing Colleen on local television here in Nova Scotia for a number of years. Always a lot of fun. She does a great job. Great personality. Jones. He could transition from the curling sheet to the television camera pretty quickly. Again, Yurka Jones, you see that so many times, just like a concerned parent following her child. She follows that rock all the way down. And that's one, that's two, and will there be handshakes? Or will BC want to play on here, down by 5? So 7-2 is the lead. Columbia, well, full credit to them. They know that their playoff lives are hanging in the balance here. Having a little talk now. You see both teams huddled together. Nova Scotia over on the left, having a little more fun right now than perhaps the British Columbia team is. 7-2 lead going into the 7th end. Why wouldn't you feel great? So that huddle broken up, and in the meantime, British Columbia, the front end, Sherry Heath, Cindy Curtin, Leanne Ursel, things over. So we will play on here. British Columbia, good for them. A tip of the cap to BC. 7-2, 5 points. I guess they're figuring close enough. Why not take a crack at it? And good for them. You don't want to just hand over any opportunity that you might have for the playoffs. And that comes back to what I was mentioning. You know, they've got their fate in their hands, and it hasn't really gone the way that they've wanted it to this point. But why not take a crack at it? And Nova Scotia, well, they're going to be, you just saw it there, Nancy Delahunt taking her first rock and just, whoop, that shot I could make, just throwing it right through the house. I could probably shoot a high percentage on that one. So Sherry Heath, I'm sure we'll see something a little different here. They're going to want to put something in play. And on the Nova Scotia side of things, I would be surprised if I saw anything other than a peel game. Probably one of the best known curlers for that peel game would have been Pat Ryan, who, if there was a rock that needed to be peeled, he would typically be the guy that you would call upon to do it. And I'm sure that Nova Scotia, well, we'll have to wait and see what their strategy is here, but I would not at all be surprised if they put the peel strategy in here. So Nancy Delahunt with the delivery. Try and get an update here on the scoreboard over in our feature game on sheet D. And the question is, will this get enough of a roll? It was pretty quiet weight thrown. And Radford, I guess, making the decision that was going to go out as she just kind of soccer kicked it out of the back. I was actually waiting to see if that rock was going to hang around the rings. So apparently Team Nova Scotia wasn't going to leave it to chance. They were going to take care of it. That was a kind of an interesting moment here in this one. However, BC not raising any objections, so we carry on. BC is just going to keep at it until they are run out of stones, and until they can no longer have a mathematical possibility to score 5. They'll play on here. So with one guard on one side, BC now will come to the other side of the sheet and put this one in play. So Jones, I'm sure she will want Mary Sue Radford to zero in on that yellow BC rock and just eliminate it from play. That's a little heavier weight thrown this time than we saw moments ago from Delahunt. There's the hit. Now, I don't think you'll be seeing anybody kick that one out of play as the rock rolls over and will sit in that 8-foot right around that center line. Manitoba leading Alberta 7-3 over on our feature game on sheet D. Michelle Lang and Randy Furby calling the action over there. And similar score on our feature game here on sheet B. Nova Scotia, true to form, playing a very strong methodical curling game, have made the shots they've needed to make, and have avoided any major mistakes. And full marks for the 5-point lead. So we see another guard put up by British Columbia. Nova Scotia, I would think, will just want to peel that off. And again, it becomes a numbers game at this point. You need rocks to score, and when you need 5, you have to start counting rocks and realizing that there comes a point where you just don't have enough rocks to get the points you need. Woohoo, almost a miss there by the narrowest of margins, just caught the edge of that BC stone. But at the end of the day, they got the result they wanted. They peel off the guard, and the shooter rolls out of play. And Nova Scotia keeping things pretty clean here in this 7th end. Nova Scotia looking to run their record to 5-1. And of course, if this score holds up, that would drop British Columbia to 2-4. And then BC would be keeping a very close eye on the Manitoba women's game to see what the result is there, because if the two teams finish identical, the first tiebreaker is head-to-head, and BC does have the advantage there. So another guard put in place on that same side, and Colleen Jones, deja vu all over again, sits in place. But now instead of Mary Sue Radford, she'll be calling on Kim Kelly to peel that out of there. Kelly with the peel weight. There it is. Thought it might angle over and potentially have a double, but a little too difficult of an angle. But it does indeed do the job, taking care of the guard and keeping things clear. Some more of the sponsors to thank on behalf of the Digby Area Recreation Commission for bringing the 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championships to Digby. Friends of the Seniors sponsors include Annapolis Basin Conference Center, East Coast Lifestyles, Scotiabank Digby Branch, the Digby Pines Golf Resort and Spa, Wilson's Hardware Limited, and Labatt's. Scott Squires and the Bell-aligned TV1 crew, including Chuck Calder, Scott McRae, and the guys from 45 North. Glad to be here watching Day 3 of the 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championships. Pleased earlier to have Mark Duffy, the President and CEO of Everest, on with us, talking about how he and his company came to be involved with seniors curling, their thoughts on where it is now, and what they'd like to see happen going forward. And I know for one, I'm very excited to see where seniors curling is and to see where it's going to go over the next few years. And it was great to have Mark on board and to hear from him about what Everest is looking to do with this event, including the relationship with Randy Ferbey and the Everest Ferbey National Pro-Am, and as well to hear about exactly what Everest is as a company. And again, if you have a chance, look them up on everestfuneral.ca. I know I did, and pretty neat to know that that service exists for residents right across Canada. And Ursel now following this one down as well, and she'll just get it by. Very quiet wait here, and she gets it in behind the guard, and she'll sit right there in the 12-foot. So now I guess the question is, Jones, does she want to come in around, or would she run that guard back and try and maybe eliminate both? And I guess the nice thing is, when you've got a 5-point lead in the 7th end, there's 2 or 3 possibilities that you can play with and perhaps feel comfortable with each of them. And just at the top right of your screen there, a gentleman with a phone taking a picture. There's a whole lot of that going on here as well. Tablets, iPhones, smartphones, Android phones. Everybody snapping pictures, posting them on Facebook, social media, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. I know I've been doing just that. And want to remind you as well, you can follow us along on Twitter. You can send us tweets. Reach out to me. My Twitter name is Josco, Johsco. Also include the hashtag EverestFerbey, as well as the hashtag TV1. We love to hear from you. We love to read your tweets on the air when we get them. And an uncharacteristic miss. And could that be the little ray of light that BC is looking for here? So that one going by everything. So opens up a little bit of opportunity here for British Columbia. BC with the hammer here in 7. But again, long way to go here and a lot to do for Diane Foster. Working our way toward the conclusion of this draw. And then at the conclusion of all of the draws here on day 3, that will conclude the round robin portion. And then I kind of feel for the official timekeepers or memo keepers, whatever you want to call them, the schedule makers, I guess, that are going to have to see all of the results and figure out who is seated where and who is going to play who tomorrow on what ice, and then disseminate all that information out to all the teams, because all the teams will be in action tomorrow, regardless of whether it's for the championship pool or for placement pool. So a lot of information, a lot of hard work to be done. Final draw here this evening. Foster does a nice job of working that stone into the 4-foot. So we'll see now. I'm sure Jones will just come down and take care of that. And for Colleen Jones is to limit British Columbia to as few points as possible, because even if BC scores a couple of points, Nova Scotia will maintain the lead and then have the hammer in the 8th end, and then it will really just be a matter of running BC out of rocks. So Jones gives a gentle caress to the rock. Hand on knee. And there again, you almost see that very moment where Colleen Jones locks in the decision that she has in terms of her shot. And then no turning back for the Nova Scotia skip. She comes out of the hack. And again, that laser-like focus lets go of the stone. Last rock for Jones here in Nova Scotia in this 7th end. Looking to take that one out, maybe get a little rollover behind cover. Just a lovely shot from the Nova Scotia skip. You could say Jones-like with that shot. So now Foster, I'm sure, mulling around in her mind, is there any possible way to take out the Nova Scotia rocks enough and leave the shooter around that she can somehow score 2 and have that rock that's over on the left-hand side sitting in the 12-foot come into play here and count as a point. Never say never. Things can happen when you least expect it, but again, a tall order here for the native of Kelvington, Saskatchewan. The employee of Edamame Energy, looking for a little extra energy here as she throws her final stone in this 7th end. Diane Foster and British Columbia looking to extend it to an 8th end and really try to pull a rabbit out of the hat. Brushes are on it. It's going to be right on that front one. Pushes it, moves it around. My goodness, what a shot. Goodness gracious me. Diane Foster pulls a beautiful shot. A curling bag of tricks and scores 2. Well, no need to wonder why BC wanted to carry it to an 8th end. Regardless of the outcome, my goodness. Just a great end of curling there from British. You know that a curler has made a good shot when your director comes in your headset and says, wow. And I can tell you, Chuck Calder, our director switcher today, has covered a lot of curling, so he's seen a lot of shots. But let's give the gravity of the situation. BC knows that they need to win. They've been up against it all game long against Nova Scotia. For Diane Foster to settle into the hack at that moment with that pressure, knowing all eyes are on her, she knows that this is a TV game on TV1 Online. She knew that. And to have that pressure and to make that shot at that moment. Very well done. And that, my friends, is why curling is a great game. So 7-4 again for Nova Scotia. Let's not forget, no panic on their side. They're still feeling good about things. They've got a 3-point lead and the hammer. So Colleen Jones and Nova Scotia now with a 3-point lead. The eighth end. Just a quick recap of the scoring for you. Nova Scotia with 2 in 1. BC with 1 in the second. Nova Scotia blanked the third. Then Colleen Jones and her Nova Scotia team scoring 3 in the fourth. Diane Foster bounced back with 1 for BC in the fifth. Colleen Jones with 2 in the sixth. And then shot on her final stone from Diane Foster counts 2 for BC in the seventh. And we play on here in this eighth end. Nova Scotia with the hammer and a 3-point lead. And you know, the funny thing about that shot is, regardless of what happens in this game, and regardless of what happens the rest of this tournament, I guarantee you that shot will be in the brain of Diane Foster. And years from now, she will remember that shot. It'll put a smile on her face, and she will tell that story for years. I remember at 2016, at the Everest Canadian Curling Championships, the seniors, I made this shot against Colleen Jones. And that's the other thing. Let's not forget, she made that shot against Colleen Jones, which makes it even greater, I'm sure, in the mind of Diane Foster. And to use maybe a vernacular that other Canadian fans may appreciate, let's talk about hockey. I know if it were me and I scored a goal on a goalie that nobody had ever heard of, it'd still be great. But my hero is Ken Dryden. If I scored a goal on Ken Dryden, wow. It would be that much more emphasis, that much more impact. It would be that much more epic in my mind. So well done. A very well played game. And you know, sometimes the score isn't really indicative of the way a game has been. And you got to look at that 3 spot that Jones put up in the fourth. After blanking 3, Jones played a brilliant in 4 and got that 3. But again, Diane Foster, she hasn't been blown off of this sheet here. She's hung around. And you know, perhaps foolishly on my part, when it was 7-2 coming out of the sixth end, I questioned handshakes. I shouldn't have even said that, really. Because why would they, given the fact that they need to win to move on? And Diane Foster, equally great end for BC in the seventh. And now we play here in the eighth. So a couple of guards in play. And feature game over on Sheet D, Michelle Lang and Randy Furby. The on-air duo, the dynamic duo, I may say. Bringing you the action over in that game. Currently 7-4 for Manitoba over Alberta. So Nova Scotia trying to keep it fairly clean here. 3-point lead. So can British Columbia somehow steal 3? That could be one for the ages if that were to happen. We saw a huge comeback, actually, I believe it was yesterday. I think it was Manitoba in the Northwest Territories. I believe Manitoba was down 6-1 and ended up coming back, scoring 2, stealing 2 in the 8th to take it to extras, and then stealing 1 in the 9th to win. So that was actually talked about quite a bit at the Everest Patch, just how great that comeback was, coming back from a 6-1 deficit. So, you know, it can be done. I joke often about how I really don't like to talk in absolutes. It's just, you know, when you say this will definitely happen or that's definitely going to happen, you kind of hang yourself out to dry when you do those things. So Nova Scotia peels out one guard. You see, the picture tells the tale there. 3 rocks in play. 1 in the rings for Nova Scotia, another in the rings from British Columbia, and then a guard in that 4-foot zone just above the 12-foot belonging to BC as well. So two teams, the Nova Scotia foursome of Colleen Jones, Kim Kelly, Mary Sue Radford, and Nancy Delahunt, looking to round out their record at 5-1. And the BC team of Diane Foster, Leanne Ursel, Cindy Curtin, and Sherry Heath looking just to hang on here by a thread and even up their record at 3-3. Ursel, those steely blue eyes, watching this go down and cross over the center line now. Coming down, is it going to nestle up against that other guard? It'll just freeze right there. And that's where it will stay. Colleen Jones comes out to take a quick look. You see Kim Kelly asking whether there's 3/4 or half of that rock showing, and then now they're talking about whether they want to go in turn or out turn. So good communication between Colleen Jones and her vice. That's what teamwork's all about. You know, they bounce things off each other. Colleen Jones was thinking one thing, Kim Kelly was thinking the other. They put it together and they come up with this shot out of the hand now of Kim Kelly. Good weight from Kelly on this one. Crashes into those two yellow BC rocks and clean them right out of the way. Now, a little bit of a break for BC as that one guard that went over to the right-hand side of your screen, they're kind of spun back in towards the ring, so it does stay in play. In terms of clearing out those two guards that were in place, good job there by Kim Kelly. Leanne Ursel once again from Dawson Creek. Keeps a close eye on this. You see the time clock there just went out of your frame, but lots of time left for both teams. Neither team has even called a timeout yet, so no worries on that front. And another guard put in place, trying to put a little protection in for that rock that you see just at the bottom of your frame there, sitting in the 8-foot. Jones now, I'm sure, will ask Kim Kelly to remove that rock that Ursel just put in play. And it's out of Kelly's hands, Delahunt and Radford. Radford, the only one with the brush. And, well, that's a couple of times now we've seen pretty straight-up misses coming from this Nova Scotia team. And again, pretty uncharacteristic. You know, you can sometimes just see a miss and it's just barely missed, but we've seen a couple of straight-up misses. So, you know, again, you never know what can happen, and you got to play out the string. So, Diane Foster, again, just a brief little opening here off of that miss from Nova Scotia. Again, to put it in perspective here, Nova Scotia still leads by 3, and rock here, so eventually it will come down to the last rock from Colleen Jones, but Foster absolutely not making it easy for this Nova Scotia foursome. So now maybe they're discussing, can they somehow come over to that red? Now, I think Foster just took a look back at the time. Maybe she's going to call time. Or maybe I thought she took a look back to check how much time she had left on the thinking time clock. But perhaps she was just looking back to have a chat with her front end, Keith and Cindy Curtin. So I think that's what it is. And let's not forget, you know, the front end sweeping, incredibly important. Sweeping, especially on a very, you know, fine shot where you're looking to go through a hole or get certain positioning, the front end sweeping can be paramount and can really make or break a certain shot. So if you had told me back when it was 7-2 at the end of the 6th end that we'd be sitting here questioning the outcome this late in the 8th end, I probably would have said, nah, I don't think. But that's why you play the game. To quote football Herm Edwards, that's why you play the game. And that is why you play the game, because you just never know. You play it out to the end. Crazy things can happen in the world of sports. It's unscripted, and you just never know. Bell Alliant is proud to be the official broadcaster for the 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championships, live from the Digby Arena as well as the Digby Curling Club in beautiful Digby, Nova Scotia. Bell Alliant, there's more to love with fiber op. So Leanne Ursel with the brush placement there, and Diane Foster. It'll be interesting to talk to Diane after this game and just get her thoughts on how this draw. So Foster with the shot here. Round, and we'll sit right there, just nibbling on the top part of that 8-foot, but majority of that rock in the 12. I want to say thank you to all the folks that have been following along on Twitter. Michael Dudar, Jay Chafos, Dan Hobson, Ray Jonis, the Pin People, Kent Mano, as well as Curling Canada. Appreciate all of your tweets, retweets. Great to know that you're following along and watching this 2016 Everest Canadian Seniors Curling Championship. Remember, you can always reach out to us via Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Josko. You can also use the hashtag EverestFurby and hashtag TV1. And been very happy as well to follow Sask411. Anything I tweet out about Saskatchewan, as long as I put hashtag Sask411, they'll retweet it. So Saskatchewan winning earlier on the men's side, and happy to have them following me on Twitter, and likewise give @Sask411 a follow. Nova Scotia will look to peel that out, and can they get it over, get the double, and push it out? That's a nice looking shot right there, as they take a couple of BC rocks out, and again, it becomes a numbers game now. Simply put, there has to be at least 3 that are going to count, and in this particular case, it would be a steal of 3 for BC. And I think the other side of it is, and again, the outcome's still in doubt here, but if you're Colleen Jones and you do end up winning this game, you're going to be able to really use it as a good test. You know, like BC is really testing the mettle of Nova Scotia here and keeping Nova Scotia under pressure. And this kind of game, if it stays the way it is only going to help Colleen Jones and her team going forward, because they've been called upon to make some tough shots. And the other thing is, Colleen Jones is going to want to talk about some of the misses and talk to them whether it was a communication issue or an ice issue. And again, the outcome's still in doubt, but this game could actually go a long way to helping Team Nova Scotia. On the other side, same thing for BC. Win or lose, what a great experience for them to come in here against a very experienced Nova Scotia team and for the most play them even up through 8 ends. And truly the real difference, and again, it's a differentiation of 3 here, and that it's that 4th end where Nova Scotia scored 3 points after blanking the 3rd end. That's the real difference. Jones blanked the 3rd, regrouped, came out in the 4th end. Just a masterful curling end. Put the 3 up, and everything else aside, that is 100% the difference in this game. 7-4, 3-point lead, and it all really falls back on that 3-point 4th. That would be the Bell Alliant game changer for sure, at least to this point. In terms of big moments, though, you certainly can't look past that final stone thrown by Diane Foster, facing all of that traffic and being able to pull off the deuce in 7. So Jones, pretty simple here. It's all about mathematics. Just take out BC yellow, and if they can't score at least 3, it's game over. Kelly with the sweep. Line looks good. There goes one. And two hang around, but that'll be it. Nova Scotia has run BC out of rocks. Two teams shaking hands, and I think a lot of respect on both sides as handshake. Nova Scotia gets the victory. They take their record to 5-1. They'll be on to the playoffs. And now for British Columbia, they're going to have to wait and see what Manitoba does in their game. Because if Manitoba wins, Manitoba's through. BC would drop down to relegation in terms of the seedings tomorrow. But if Manitoba loses and they have the same 2-4 record, based on head-to-head, BC would move on into the playoff seedings. So that wraps things up here in this one. On behalf of our Bella Line TV1 crew, Chuck Calder, Scott McRae, and the guys from 45 North. As well, I'd like to thank Mark Duffy, President and CEO of Everest, for joining us earlier. It was great to have him on board. Scott Squires saying thank you very much for watching. Your final score, Nova Scotia defeats BC by a score of 7-4. Good night from Digby. We'll see you for the playoffs tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock Atlantic. Good night from Digby.